So today we are in chapters 8 and 9 of the Gospel of Luke, making progress through this and making progress through our 2020 reading plan. We just have about 2.5 months left to go, so you guys are doing a great job reading through all of God's Word. I mentioned last week, J.C. Ryle had said that a full Christian needs a full Bible, or a whole Christian needs the whole Bible. And isn't that the truth? And I'm sure that the Lord is blessing you as you read through His Word and maturing you, making you a full, whole Christian. So good for you guys. We'll pick up in verse 22 of chapter 8. That's where we finished last time. Remember, we're in a section where Jesus is teaching. His ministry is being described. Basically, two orbits in his ministry. He's got a teaching ministry that's ongoing, continuous, and then he's got this healing ministry. And the way they work together is that the healing authenticates his teaching. So we see that over and over. And what we see here in chapter 8 is, again, demonstration after demonstration of Jesus' authority. So in verses 22 to 25, you see he's calming the storm on the sea. He's got authority over these storms. You recall from the Old Testament, Baal was a storm god. And the thinking was that when Baal was upset, a storm would result. Well, this would show to the pagan mind anyway that Jesus had control over this so-called God. To a Jewish mind, a devout mind, raises the question that the disciples ask in verse 25. Who then is this that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him? Who indeed? Then we see in verses 26, really down through 39, this story of Jesus healing the demoniac in the Gerasenes. This is an area on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. He has left Capernaum, and he's traveled there, and he's encountered this demon-possessed man. And Jesus, he's possessed by a legion of demons, 1,000 demons, it seems like, if we take that literally. And the demons beg Jesus, so they're communicating with Jesus. They know who he is. Interestingly enough, the scribes and Pharisees don't. They reject him, but the demons do. And they beg to be thrown into these pigs that are nearby, a whole herd of pigs. Somehow these demons, I don't know if it's a particular class, but somehow demons need to be embodied. So they want to be in these unclean animals that they're herding in this Gentile area. Jesus allows them to do that, and the demons immediately charge downhill into the ocean, into the sea, and drown. So apparently pigs can't swim. I could take it from that. And lots of bacon loss there, which I think upset the herdsmen. They returned to town and relate what had happened. And the people are terrified about what's happened, and they ask Jesus to leave. Interesting reaction. I can't really explain that fully, except that this was so startling and so financially impactful for them that they just did not want anything to do with Jesus at this point. Then in verses 40 through 56, you're going to see Jesus' encounter with some females, let's say. One's a woman, one's a girl. In Luke's gospel, we see women play fairly prominent role. We saw earlier at the beginning of chapter 8 that they're financially supporting Jesus. They're part of the entourage that's with him. Here, we saw that woman came and weeping at Jesus' feet, and Jesus forgave her sins. Here we see a woman who has been bleeding for years, and a very unusual healing. She sneaks up on Jesus in the crowd, just touches his garment, And Jesus senses that God has used him, the Father has used him to heal this woman. And he wants to know who this woman is. She identifies herself to him, and when she finds that she's not hitting, and he says, "Your faith has made you well, go in peace." How tender, I think, from Jesus to affirm for her what she's experienced. This encounter with this woman with the bleeding has come in the middle of another encounter where the synagogue ruler, whose daughter is dying, Jairus is his name, has sent for Jesus. Jesus is delayed then, healing this woman, and then after that woman is healed, we get news from a servant in Jairus' home that his daughter has now died. But Jesus proceeds anyway. He takes Peter, James, and John with him into their house, and he raises this girl from the dead. So we see that Jesus has authority not only over storms, over demons, but over illness and over even death. So this is a recurring theme in this section of Jesus' authority, his power, backs up his teaching. He can be believed. He can be relied on. We get to chapter 9 then, and we see really the gospel is spreading. He's going to spread the gospel through his disciples. Same pattern. They're going to go out, they're going to spread the good news, and then they back it up by miracles. They back it up by signs and wonders. That's the point of them, of signs and wonders, is to back up the testimony of the teacher, of Jesus and the disciples. This is real. It can be relied upon. Of course, the scribes and Pharisees are dismissing this. They're going to say that Jesus is doing this by the power of Satan. Gets Herod's attention in verses 7 through 9. Herod hears what's going on, and he's kind of stirred up about it, and he's trying to see Jesus, but Jesus is, at this point, not responding to him. It's interesting how Jesus is continuously ministering to the common people in Israel. That's where he's doing the healing. That's where he's doing the demon casting out, just the common people inside and outside of Israel. Our strategies today seem to be around getting a celebrity or getting a political figure or some prominent person, Kanye West, converted and trotting him out. Jesus doesn't seem to be doing that. He is concerned about the people of Israel. Verses 10 through 17, we see Jesus' concern for them with I'd say more than just a sentiment, but Jesus is moved by his concern to miraculously feed over 5,000 people who have been following him, and following him out into a desert, into a desolate place. So they don't have drive-throughs handy. So Jesus is going to demonstrate his concern for the people. Remember, he's not responding to Herod, who's desiring to see him. He's giving himself to the common people. And that's what Jesus does when he feeds them. Then he goes to the disciples after this. And the disciples, he asks him, well, who do people think I am? Lots of controversy over who Jesus is. A prophet, just a holy man of God. Is this really the Messiah? And they, tell him that there's a lot of speculation about who you are. And then Jesus says to Peter, who do you think I am? And he says, the Christ of God. And Jesus affirms that he is. He tells him, don't tell anybody this. And then he explains to him what's going to happen. This is the first time in the Gospel of Luke. We've seen it before in Matthew, that Jesus must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day raised from the dead. They're not getting this. They are not understanding that this does not fit, as I've said before, with their expectation of a Messiah. Nevertheless, they've move forward here, and Jesus warns them that to follow him is costly. They're expecting royalty. They're expecting to be in palaces, in the temple, reigning and ruling over the earth with Jesus. And Jesus warns them that in the near term, discipleship is going to be difficult. In fact, it's going to cost you your life. That's what the cost of discipleship is. It's going to cost each of these apostles their lives. And Jesus makes that clear to them. Verses 28 through 36, we see the transfiguration. I talked about that extensively in Matthew's gospel, so I won't go over it again here. But this is followed up by another healing of a demon-possessed boy. His father brings him. His disciples can't do it. Jesus does. He commends, he condemns faith here, or lack of faith. Condemns his generation. You remember that in Matthew's gospel, Mark's gospel, he received this man's embryonic faith, and that was the focus there. For Luke, it's a little different. He's emphasizing Jesus' reaction to the lack of faith that was found, particularly among his disciples, who, as I said when I discussed this earlier, were probably thinking that the power was in them rather than going to God in prayer. Jesus again prophesies his death. He emphasizes this. And then they have the discussion about who's the greatest in the kingdom. Again, simplified here a little bit. Luke emphasizes that the least among you is the one who is going to be great. The other Gospels explain what least means, to be servant of everyone. Jesus is going to, of course, demonstrate this at the Last Supper when he washes the disciples' feet. It's a recurring theme, though, that leaders support, leaders serve the people that they are leading. That's how they become leaders. Not by running off and doing their own thing, not by lording it over the people and resisting their will, but by serving them humbly. And that's what Jesus emphasizes here. And that's really the last of Jesus's, this teaching section. Jesus leaves us with that instruction. And then beginning in 951, we see opposition begin to mount. So Jesus is now heading to Jerusalem. Opposition is going to mount as he approaches Jerusalem. And as that opposition mounts, he turns more and more to prepare his disciples for how they're going to live, how they're going to need to follow him once he's gone. So we see that here. He sets his face to Jerusalem. First thing we find in verses 51 through 56, the Samaritans reject him because he's heading to Jerusalem. The Samaritans were the result of Jews that married or intermingled with Assyrians during the exile of the northern 10 tribes. They have set up their own worship on Mount Gerizim that rivals or attempts to rival the worship in Jerusalem. So they have nothing to do with Jesus and reject him and turn him away. And then Jesus, reflecting on this, again, he's going to explain to his disciples what's going to happen here. He uses this as a teaching moment. And they're going along the road. Somebody says, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. Jesus basically says to him, I have nowhere to go. Foxes have holes. But the Son of Man, birds of the air have nests. They have somewhere to go. Jesus doesn't. The Son of Man, who's serving humanity, has nowhere to lay his head. He says to another, he says he wants to go bury his father, which would be the normal social custom. I don't think this implies that his father is laying dead, but I think it implies that he's going to stay with his family until his father dies and takes care of that situation. And Jesus says, no, I'm the priority. You don't get it. If you're going to be my disciple, you have to put me before family. And then we see another one and says that more explicitly that I want to go back home and say goodbye before I leave. Jesus says, no. Time is of the essence. It's imperative. It's the season to be plowing, so you need to put your hand to the plow and not look back. So Jesus makes some pretty radical requirements here to follow him. And I wonder, we live in a time where it's relatively easy to follow Jesus. I wonder if we had to give up family. I wonder if we had to turn our back on all social customs. If we had to respond really immediately to give ourselves more fully to him. I wonder how many among us would really respond as Jesus wants us to respond, with total, wholehearted, unreserved commitment to him. Reflect on that, brothers and sisters, as you get ready to read your last reading for the week in Luke 10 and 11. Talk to you tomorrow. God bless you.